right. This is like, I was literally walking out the door and I got a phone, like a work phone call that I like needed to take. It was one of those, and then it was a half an hour. Luckily, I found.
Well, now that we're a candidate, I was like, why is that name familiar? And I was like, oh, that's him. That's right.
I was like, we don't have a group text.
Okay, so we have opposition on the two things that are not already established. She's here with her father, Mr. Kadir, and Gerald Cutler. He may have gone out into the hall to talk to John Ross, maybe discussing it.
So who would like to do motions today? And
You figured that out.
I should have prefaced it. Tell me what we're doing.
I'm motioning, she's seconding, which I think means she has to read the statement.
I agree.
If you're motioning, you won't be reading, the opening statement,
Yeah.
that's her gig anyway, she's the secretary.
Oh, well, she wasn't, you weren't here the last time I was here, so that's why I'm confused.
Yeah, that's Kristen's jam.
All right. Staff, are we ready to go?
Well,
We have a crowd today.
They should be in here, but there are some people not in here.
All right, well, I have 1 o'clock then. They don't have a gavel. We'll bring the June 8th, 2022 meeting of the Plat Committee to order, and we are going to start with an opening statement.
The Plat Committee is limited with regard to what it can consider in its review of proposed subdivision plats. The Plat Committee's function is ministerial rather than discretionary. The approval or disapproval of a plat is controlled by the requirements and standards set out in the subdivision control ordinance. If the proposed plat meets those requirements and standards, which include zoning requirements, the Plat Committee must approve the plat.
Thank you, Ms. Moyo. We will consider special requests and continuances at this time. Is there anyone here with a special request or continuance from the crowd? Thank you. Yes, please just state your name and address for the record and the petition you're here for.
Good morning. My name is Chris Badger with Badger Engineering, and we're located at 9830 Michigan Road, Carmel, Indiana, Suite D. And I'm here on behalf of petitioners' continuance on 2022 Plat 022, and that is 8009 and 8015 West Michigan Road, or West Michigan Street in Wayne Township. We'd like to be expedited. We've got all of our corrections on the plat done and given to Heather, as well as we've met with the remonstrator, and I think we got most things settled.
Mr. Badger, did you say West Michigan Road as opposed to West Washington Street?
My address is Michigan, I apologize, West Washington.
Okay. Well, thank you. Is there anyone else here for 2022 PLT 022? Yes, please step up to the mic. Your name and address, please.
Well, he's the owner of 8013.
Are you representing him?
Yeah. No, I'm his daughter.
Oh, okay, yeah. Go ahead, sir, if you just want to provide your name real quick.
Merle Roberts.
Could you step under a microphone?
Oh,
He is
yeah,
under a
thank you.
microphone.
Okay, could you step not behind the big TV?
Merle Roberts. I own the property.
Okay.
In front of.
In front of. So
Yes.
you are here in regards to this petition?
I don't know what they're trying to do. I mean, that's why I'm here.
Okay, so I think at this point we'll go ahead and wait and give this a full hearing. Yeah, so we'll move through other continuances or and special requests at this time, but we'll go ahead and hold off on moving the petition to the expedited docket. So you'll be able to give your remarks again.
Chris, can you take that out?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other special requests or continuances at this time from Okay.
Can I go get my other card?
They're walking in now.
Oh, he's asking for continuances.
Yes. Okay.
Just state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Kenneth Kadir, President of Citizens Neighborhood Coalition.
Okay. And,
Oh, 502 East 23rd Street.
okay. And which petition are you here for, sir?
It's 2022PL TO32.
Two. Okay. And so, are you here asking?
Against.
Against, okay, so that petition is currently slated for full hearing, so you will be able to provide any testimony once we get to that part of the hearing.
Okay, I think we were having a discussion about trying to get it expedited.
Oh, okay.
Are we in the
There it is.
special request portion?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry. Attorney John Cross, here on the same petition, 2022 PLT 032, address 13 North State Street, Suite 241, Greenfield, Indiana 46140. Attorney for the petitioner, Paul Musalek. And this is a request to subdivide one parcel into 4 parcels in a D8 zoning district. The proposed plat does comply with the D8 zoning district's ordinances, so as a procedural matter, it should be approved here today. After speaking with Kenneth in the hallway, he did raise concerns, but those concerns to me did not address the subdivision into 4 lots in order to compliance with the D8 standards, but rather went to potential title issues of whether or not the petitioner is the owner. He feels that that was not the case and that the prior transfer was maybe not proper. This was all news to me, and the petitioner has not been made aware of it. So we would presume that the ownership is proper until challenged in a court of law. Kenneth did state that he would have an attorney here today, and I'm not sure if he's here yet.
Jeff?
So are we right now we're deciding whether or not are we continuing this, or are you asking to move it to the expedited petition?
Petitioner's request would be that it does get moved to the expedited docket, as staff is supporting the petition and the proposed plat does meet all of the ordinance standards, and the petitioner does agree to all the conditions imposed. And petitioner feels that Kenneth's concerns regarding the titleship are not an issue for the plat's consideration today, but if they are challenged, then of course that would be done separately and most likely the court of law that would not impede on a decision here today.
Okay. Could we hear from staff, please?
Yes. So staff is recommending approval of this petition. If there's no remonstrators, I'm not opposed to expediting.
Okay.
I can address the ownership issue.
Yeah. Could someone please turn their phone off? Thank you. Yeah. Yes, Linda.
Before a plat is recorded, it must get a stamp from the assessor's office, and we rely on the assessor's office to verify that ownership prior to recording the plat. So whatever's on file with the assessor at the time of the plat recording, it has to match what's on the plat. So if there's a challenge, that certainly can happen, but we have that verified before we record. We don't just record with whatever name they present to us. We have it verified.
Okay. So, are you remonstrating, sir, to this?
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
Okay, so I think at this point we'll give this a full hearing. So, we will move to this petition later on in the hearing. So this will not be expedited at this time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other special requests and continuances from the? Yes, thank you.
Yes, Alex Crowley with American Structure Point here in regards to 2022 PLT 021. We had officially withdrawn the application because our client is going through some rezoning, and so I'm just here to request a 50% refund to the filing fee, if that is.
Staff. Allison,
Yes.
thank you.
At the time that I published it, I had it as a dismissal, but since publishing, I did receive a written request for withdrawal, so that would need your acknowledgement, and staff is supportive for a refund of half the application fee.
Okay, so the withdrawal is acknowledged, and then any discussion from board members on the refund request. Okay, can I hear a motion?
I move that, we're withdrawing or dismissing?
Oh, for the refund request.
Okay,
Yeah.
but
So the withdrawal was acknowledged.
okay. I move that we refund 50% of the fee for 2022 PLT 021 with the per staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Now call the roll. Ms. Moyo,
Moyo votes yes.
Ms. Hackett,
Hackett's a yes.
and Nielsen is a yes. Refund is approved.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. 50%. Okay. Any other special requests? We're moving on to staff. Okay, seeing none. Any special requests and continuances from staff?
Yes. Thank you, Chairperson Nielsen and members of the committee. First, I would like to draw your attention to 2022-VAC-003 at 470 Kendig Road. I had this on the expedited docket, but it actually needs to be continued. There is an adjacent property owner that needs to consent to the vacation that we discovered after review, and I was hoping they'd be able to get that consent by today, and they were unable to do so. So staff is requesting a continuance without notice to July 13th.
Is there anyone here for 2022 VAC 003? Okay, questions from board members? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that 2022 VAC 003 be continued to the July 13th Plat Committee meeting without additional notice.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll call the roll. Ms. Moyo,
Moyo votes yes.
Ms. Hackett,
Hackett's a yes.
and Nielsen's a yes. 2022 VAC 003 is continued to the July 13th Plat Committee hearing without additional notice.
Okay. Staff would also like to request a continuance for 2022-PLT-038 at 4310 North Carroll Road. Let me scroll down to what I wrote, sorry. Okay, so this petition, the primary plat didn't match what was approved with the DP. So we're requesting that it be continued to July 13th to give some time to either amend the plat or apply for another rezoning. So at this time, I would say without notice, staff will request notice if needed. This would be to July 13th.
Okay, is there anyone here for 2022 PLT 038? All right. Board members, anything? Okay, now entertain a motion.
I move that we continue 2022 PLT 038 to the July 13th Plat Committee meeting without additional notice.
Is there a second?
Second.
Now call the roll. Ms. Moyo,
Moyo votes yes.
Ms. Hackett,
Hackett's a yes.
and Nielsen is a yes. 2022 PLT 038 is continued to the July 13th Plat Committee without notice. Anything else from staff? We will now proceed with the expedited petitions. Heather.
2022 PLT 020, amended petition 6501 Millhouse Road, 6710, 6930 Mills Road, Decatur Township, Council District 20, Zone D3 Cluster. D.R. Horton, Indiana, LLC by Gordon D. Kreitz, requesting approval of a subdivision plat to be known as Cardinal Grove, Section 1, subdividing 22.8 acres into 60 single-family detached lots. 2022 PLT 035, 2213 Bellefontaine Street, Center Township, Council District 17, Zone D8, Arcadia 1 Development, LLC by Janelle D. Berkshire, requesting approval of a subdivision plat to be known as Third Flight Addition, dividing .14 acre into 2 single-family attached lots. 2022 PLT 036, 2128 Bellefontaine Street,
Center Township, Council District 17, Zone D8, Arcadia One Development LLC by Janelle D. Berkshire, requesting approval of a subdivision plat to be known as First Flight Addition. Are these both? Third Flight first. This one, First Flight Addition, dividing .14 acre into 2 single-family attached lots. 2022 PLT 037, 1330 North Emerson Avenue, Center Township, Council District 12, Zone D5, RKS Property Group, LLC by Janelle D. Berkshire, requesting approval of a subdivision plat to be known as Aviators Emerson Avenue Addition, dividing 1 acre into 2 lots. 2022 PLT 039, 7303 US 31, Perry Township, Council District 23, Zone C4, Douglas J. Singleton by Michael J. Smith, requesting approval of a subdivision plat to be known as Southport Center, dividing 1.25 acres into 2 lots. 2022 PLT 040, 1201 South German Church Road, Warren Township, Council District 19, Zone DP, Hyatt Builders, LLC by Mike Pickelzheimer, requesting approval of a subdivision plat to be known as The Reserve, dividing 28.035 acres into 33 duplex lots, 66 units. 2022 PLT 041, 10327 East Edgewood Avenue, Franklin Township, Council District 25, Zone D4, Arbor Homes, Silverthorne Homes by Brian K. Robinson, requesting approval of a subdivision plat to be known as Edgebrook Preserve, Section 3, dividing 22.044 acres into 60 lots. 2022 PLT 042, 1200 Indiana Avenue, Center Township, Council District 11, Zone CBDS in Regional Center, FFW1, 16 Tech Community Corporation by Michael J. Smith, requesting approval of a subdivision plat to be known as 16 Tech 1200 Indiana Ave, dividing 4.07 acres into 4 lots and 1 plot. Is there anyone here today in opposition to anything I've just read into the record? That is the end of the expedited docket, sir.
Thank you, Heather. I will now entertain a motion.
I move that the Plat Committee approve the expedited petitions as they have been read into the record.
Is there a second?
Second.
Now call the roll. Ms. Moyo.
Moyo votes yes.
Ms. Hackett.
Hackett's a yes.
And Nielsen is a yes. The expedited petitions as read by Heather are approved.
Everyone on the expedited docket, if you have any further business with the committee, you can leave at this time.
Okay, as we head into the full hearing, which will start in a second, as a friendly request that if you have a conversation, please step out in the hallway. Noise carries well, and we're trying to make sure we capture everything, so appreciate that. Heather, I think we're ready to move to the full hearing. When you are ready.
2022 PLT 022, amended petition 8009-8015 West Washington Street, Wayne Township, Council District 22, Zone CS and C5. SSS Mini Mart LLC by Chris C. Badger, requesting approval of a subdivision plat to be known as Sing Acres, dividing 5.423 acres into 2 lots. All persons speaking on this today, please step forward to be sworn in. What happened to your remonstrating people, sir?
Merrill's not remonstrating, he was just wondering what was going on. They have an agreement that whatever they put there doesn't conflict with the existing.
Okay,
so
let's
far.
wait till I swear you in, and then you can say that all over again. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Chris Badger with Badger Engineering, and we're located at 8930 Suite D, Michigan Road, Carmel, Indiana, 46032. Our phone number is 765-485-0000. And here to speak about the plat. Last time we were here, the Airport Authority was remonstrating, and since then, they found out that there is no SU 46 zoning on the property, and therefore, and we did meet with them, and their, I think, fears were belayed. And then Mr. Merrill was here today to find out what was going on, because they hadn't contacted him, and they have an agreement that anything that goes into that parcel would not compete. So, and we talked to him about what was proposed at this time, and it does not compete. So I don't think there's any other remonstrators. So I think we've turned in the $700 that was to make it a primary plat instead of a minor plat, and we've turned in our affidavit of notification, and lastly we turned in revised plats and emailed them out. So if anyone needs one, there's one here. I don't think that there are any questions, but if there are, please ask.
Questions for Mr. Badger at this time? Oh, sorry. Questions for Mr. Badger right now? Okay. Is there anyone here remonstrating? Mr. Merrill, did you want to speak? Sounds like we maybe have that settled, but just double checking.
Sorry, he's right there.
Okay.
He just wants to make sure that nothing competes with the business in front.
This sounds like that's been settled, though.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any comments from staff? Allison, anything you'd like to add?
Just that staff is recommending approval. It complies with the zoning district standards, and they did provide amended notice because of the zoning mapping error. We were able to confirm it's zoned CS and C5.
Okay. Questions for staff? Mr. Badger, anything you'd like to add before we?
No, it's just that we did have a final good meeting with the Airport Authority, and I think, like I said, they may end up buying the property, but we had a good meeting.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for that. Okay. All right. If there are any other questions or discussions from board members, entertain a motion.
I move that the Plat Committee approve 2022 PLT 022 and find that the plat file dated March 7th, 2022 complies with the standards of the subdivision regulations, subject to conditions 1 through 12 in the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm ask for a vote. Ms. Moyo?
Moyo votes yes.
Ms. Hackett?
Hackett's a yes.
And Nielsen is a yes. 2022 PLT 022 is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
2022 PLT 032502 East 23rd Street, Center Township, Council District 11, Zone D8. Paul Musilak by Paul Carroll, requesting approval of a subdivision plat to be known as Musilak's replat of lots 111, 112, 113 in J, A, and M Bruce's addition, dividing .69 acre into 4 lots. All persons speaking on this today, please step forward to be sworn in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Petitioner, please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Attorney John Cross, attorney with Houghton Hoy, 13 North State Street, Suite 241, Greenfield, Indiana, 46140. And for the record, since the petitioner filed the petition, there was an amended petition filed and a consent form as well to update the petitioner. Originally, it was filed with the petitioner name Paul Musilak. Since then, the property was transferred to Gem Homes LLC, who Paul Music does have an interest in. And so we did submit an amended consent form and petition. So I just want to clarify that going forward, that will be the petitioner here today. And the Plat Committee's authority here, as we all know, is to approve any proposed plat that meets the required zoning ordinances that it will be subdivided into. Here, the proposed plat is in a DA zoning district. The staff report indicates that the proposed plat meets all the ordinances. Therefore, under the rules, the Plat Committee's authority is to approve it as stated, unless it does not meet the ordinances. Very simply put, that is the petitioner's request today, that the committee find that the plat, since it does comply with the ordinances, approve it as submitted with the knowledge that it will need to be updated to address the new petitioner's name, Gem Homes LLC, notwithstanding any remonstrators' arguments here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Any questions?
Not for me.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Ben Kadir, and I am here to remonstrate any plat or changes to be done on this property due to the fact that it doesn't fit the neighborhood. I'm the neighborhood president. I'm one of the neighborhood presidents. I've been working the neighborhood for years. And what they're proposing to do doesn't fit that area. First and foremost, I want to make that clear. And to divide it, and we have several legal challenges going on against the property as well that leans to the ownership. The property is Mrs. Powell's, Ruther Powell. She's a very dedicated woman. This property is her property, and it was supposed to be rehab as a monument to her contribution to the city of Indianapolis. The work that she did in founding INRC. She's a founding member of INRC. She's a founding member of the King Park Neighborhood Development Corporation. She's also the president. She was the president for 7 years running of Citizens Neighborhood Coalition. So this is what we're proposing. We're asking that the property not be, because we were taken by surprise about a week ago. I didn't find out, I was out of town when it happened, that they sold the property. And nobody said anything to any of the stakeholders. We were a stakeholder in the property. Nobody said anything. We didn't get word one. A deal was made, and now they're here to demo the property and redesign it to high-rise that doesn't fit that area. That's pretty much what I have to say. And I have Mark with me today that wishes to make a few comments about the historical factor that goes into the development of that area that needs to be talked with us about before anybody developed the area.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark DeLossi. I am Vice President of Indiana Landmarks. We are located at 1201 Central Avenue, and we are the statewide historic preservation organization. We've been around for over 60 years, and we were one of the original partners in the redevelopment of Fall Creek Place, which is the neighborhood in which this is located. We partnered with the city, and some private developers, as well as King Park Community Development Corporation on this project. And I guess one of the reasons I'm here, I mean, I'm not theoretically opposed to the concept of townhomes. I mean, this is something we've seen crop up in many different historic neighborhoods across the city. However, I do know that from the days back when I was working on the Fall Creek Place project as early as around 2000, that one of the most important tenets of that project was that it was to remain a racially diverse, ethnically diverse, economically diverse neighborhood. It was not to be a project where we were coming in and gentrifying areas of this neighborhood or displacing tenants or residents who had been there for decades. So what are we doing today? We're asking for a plat that will build exactly the kind of units that are achieving what this gentleman is concerned about. I have a concern over that. I don't know if any of you do, any of you care about that, but my organization does. It's important to us that diversity be a key part of the community, and taking down, when this plat is approved, the home of a pioneer in the role of community development in this neighborhood, who worked side by side with people like Julia Carson, who lived right around the corner and up the street. This is an important property that would otherwise be demolished to build 4 townhomes. I guess I struggle a little bit with that trade-off, that I feel like that if you approve this today, what will result, I don't know that I feel like is that significant or important to the loss of the heritage. I'm not going to go into this house was built in 1902 and blah, blah, all this kind of stuff, because that's not really, in this case, what I feel is important. I think it's the more recent history, the people that were for decades invested in this area when nobody else wanted to be, when nobody else wanted to come and build townhomes there. They were living here, they were investing in this neighborhood, they were trying to make a difference. And now, when people want to come back, it's okay to tear their house down. I don't know that I think that's right. I don't know that I think that kind of displacement is right. I told Kenneth when he came and talked to me, I said, I don't want to get involved in your family stuff. You know, should my sisters have gotten the house? Should it be sold to a developer? Does he have legal rights in that? I guess ultimately what I would ask you to do today is to table this request, not deny it, not approve it, but table it until he has more clarity on where the legal matters are going around this property itself. Thank you.
Any questions before we hear from staff?
You have one more speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Please step to the microphone, ma'am. Yes, sorry about that. Please just state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Janie Holly. I live at 5430 Daniel Drive, 46226.
Is that H-A-W-L-E-Y?
H-O-W-L-L-Y.
Thank you.
I grew up in that area. My mom moved here in 1950 in that area. That area, I grew up all my life over there. I moved out of that area in 1996. Miss Rutha Powell was truly a pioneer of that area. And the only reason I moved out of that area, because 23, I lost all 4 of my children in a house fire in 96 down there. There's a beautiful park that has been placed down there in memory of my sons with a bench that's sitting there. That is something that we hold dear to us because we were in that community for 30, 40 years. In a week or two, I'll be 52. And most of my whole life was in that community. And it's like, you know, you drive through there now and it's like, you don't belong. I mean, how should we feel in that situation when, where were these people 40 and 50 years ago? You know, that community was built up on historical people like Miss Powell, Julia Carson. You know, Julia Carson came to the site where I lost my children at, personally, walked up to me, embraced me, and showed love to my family. That is something that we hold dear to us. I mean, if it was your mom or someone that you all looked up to very much, how would you all feel? That's all I have to say.
you, Ms. Hawley.
And
Oh, I just was saying thank you, yeah.
in conclusion, or I have one other thing to say about how we got here. Citizens Neighborhood Coalition was is the oldest it's the oldest non-for-profit organization in the city of Indianapolis. Our offices are in that building. That's our last remaining location to have meetings and discuss our issues. This redevelopment of that very area will change all of that. We have nowhere else to go. We built the Martin Luther King Park. We built the monument, Kennedy King Monument. We built that building, 601 East 17th Street, as a neighborhood building. The city moved into it. We got ownership in Broadway Heights over on College. 0.5% interest in it, but we're a stakeholder to this area. Okay, and that's what I'm bringing here and presenting to you too as well, for to deny this petition, give us a chance, you know, to clarify what's going on so that we can, because it's only been 2 weeks that we were informed that this was going to happen. I've only had 2 weeks to bring people together, to bring the issue to those that still have concerns with what's going on in our neighborhood. Okay, and a lot of the stuff that's going on in the neighborhood, and like I suggested to them when I was speaking of Fall Creek Place and King Park last week, trying to get them here to speak, but they're not here because the changes that's taking place. It just seems like that the city has gone in a direction where you're more interested in bringing people into the city than you have people that are already here. That's the statement that we're experiencing. And it points to, and this is not a threat, but I hear it all of the time in the news. What are we going to do about the violence in the city? I've been working in this neighborhood trying to curb violence for 20 years. I was part of cleaning up this neighborhood before Fall Creek Place got here. Okay, I work with children in the park every year for 10 years, giving mothers that were single mothers in these developments a place to bring their kids in the summertime, and so that they didn't have to quit their jobs because they couldn't afford daycare. And we held them, our neighborhood organization, that's a program that we sponsor in the park every year. And it just seems nobody is beginning to care about these issues that we care about any longer, with the destruction of this property, our last remaining stands that we have to make. 21, here's another piece of history for y'all that may not or may know. 1521. 1521 is where, in 1974, there was a young lady named Emily Hughes. She lived in this house, 1521 North Rocco, or Park. Eminent domain was granted to Kroger's store to move her out of her house and tear it down so that Kroger could expand. And from what I understand, we haven't learned our lesson, because I heard that Kroger's is at it again in our neighborhood. And I'm just now getting up to speed with that issue too, about the corner of 16th Street, which we have a lot to say about the things that have occurred on that corner, because we've lived with service stations being on that corner before. And we moved to stop those service stations from being on that corner due to the public safety risks that took place. The robberies, the accidents, the police runs, all of that is going to begin to start over again on that corner if they allow Kroger to put pumps on that corner. Emily Hughes' house was the reason why Citizens Neighborhood Coalition was organized as a non-for-profit organization to help her stop this corporate greed that was taking place in this neighborhood when people still had a heart and we were still we still had values, family values, and good leadership is what I was going through. Because when this was founded, it was under Mayor Lugar at the time. And under his leadership, blacks, whites, it was multicultural. He built a coalition in Citizens Neighborhood Coalition to provide fair housing, equality, and a standard of living that we all could enjoy being here, living in the city. And it attracted people from everywhere that wanted to live in our neighborhood. And that's just a little history lesson from where I stand from, and I have no beef that this sale has taken place. They have petitioned this body to develop, but we stand against it at this time and just ask for an opportunity or some time to iron out some of the issues that we have with it.
Did you mention that there is a pending lawsuit or litigation on this?
There is a pending lawsuit. That my attorney is not here. He didn't show up today because he's new.
Okay.
He's new to the city. I just got here today, but he's new to the city, so he's learning his way around the city.
Okay.
So he's the one that's instrumenting that instrument.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, we intend on pursuing this because the work that was done in the assessor's office. My sister used to work in the assessor's office. There's been some very dirty business in the transaction of will and deed and stuff like that that has taken place.
Yep.
And like I said, I didn't think, I'm ashamed to even be here right now. You know, my mother bought that house in 1974. That house has contributed to the city's tax roll ever since. My mother has never missed a mortgage payment on that property. And I'm sitting here asking for help to keep it. Where are we?
Well, yeah, appreciate your sentiment. Let's move on and hear from staff, and you will have an opportunity for some closing remarks as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions right now for petitioner and remonstrator before we move on to staff? Okay. Allison.
Okay. Well, this petition is to approve the division of this land. Just for the committee's sake, this doesn't lock any sort of development, but it would allow it to be developed. The 4 lots proposed would contain about 7,515 square feet, and they're proposed to be, I think, about 41 feet wide each, which does meet D8 standards. That's why staff is recommending approval. If you have other questions for me, I'm happy to answer them, but just based on the request of the plat, that's why we're recommending approval.
To speak to Mr. DeLassie's comments, have there been any historical covenants broken, or that we don't, paying attention to those comments?
I did reach out to Indiana Landmarks, and this property didn't have, I don't believe it had a covenant to protect this specific house from demolition, which, based on the testimony, is a little unfortunate, but yeah, I wasn't able to find anything that prevents the plat, essentially.
Okay.
Sir, Can I clarify?
No, not right now.
Yeah.
Well, please call upon me at the appropriate time.
Yes.
Because there's some misunderstanding.
You'll have 5 minutes of remonstrance.
Yes. I have some more questions, but I want to be sure the other members have the opportunity to ask, because I have a few more.
I'll wait. To the end.
Okay. Chris, what is the where do we stand if, for example, there is a pending lawsuit, and with the approval, how that relates to the approval or disapproval of a plat?
Well, first of all, staff does not do an extensive title search whenever a petition is filed. That's just beyond the scope of what they do. As far as any pending or potential litigation, short of a court order that tells us that this property can't be subdivided, I don't see anything to interfere with the Plat Committee moving forward with its decision.
Okay. A second.
If this is not approved today, what happens?
Well, there are several options. Whether it's approved or not approved, the appeal option is first to the Metropolitan Development Commission, and then depending on the outcome there, a petition for judicial review may or may not be available.
And do we have any background who owned the land and who sold the land to whomever owns it now? How that all, okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Nielsen, are we addressing Mr. DeLacy and Mr. Kadyr's request to continue this?
I just hadn't gotten there yet. I'm sorry. I just wanted to hear from
Get
staff.
your ship, sir.
Yeah, so what is staff's response to continuing it?
Well, it did receive an automatic continuance once before, but typically we don't oppose a second continuance. So I would leave it up to your discretion.
Okay.
I would say if you did choose to continue it, we could look into ownership issues, but we're not experienced at title searches, but we'd be happy to review anything that either side wanted to submit to us.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm gonna have a question towards the end, but any other questions of staff before we go to, so we can hear final remarks, ask questions, and then entertain. Okay. So, Mr. Cross, anything else that you'd like to add in a closing remark, and then we might have some questions for you.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. This was pointed out by staff, but really what's being discussed today is the proposed platting of the property, not what the intended development is. I'm not even entirely certain of what the proposed development is. Again, the committee's authority is based on the proposed plat. If it does meet the developmental standards for the proposed real estate, then it shall be approved. That simply is the case here. And while I understand and hear and empathize with all the demonstrators' concerns and the historical significance of the property, I believe that all those considerations and grounds for their request to either oppose or continue this matter are outside of the scope of today's purpose. And I do believe that they would have appropriate remedies if they wish to move forward on them. One being the apparent pending lawsuit that has been filed, it sounds like. I'm not aware of one, but certainly there's injunctive relief that could prohibit a plat from being finalized. The ownership issues, I'm not clear based off demonstrators' testimony here today and lack of evidence who the exactly or prior owner was, that there is an issue with the titleship transfer, and doesn't sound like we've heard testimony from who that prior person was, or the proper person's challenge any sort of titleship. But again, a court of law is the proper party to determine through a declaratory judgment action who actually the owner is and whether prior transfers were proper. I don't believe that providing an additional delay here for the parties to research it will really amount to much, because if the parties still dispute and can't come to an agreement, it is still going to take a judge to decide who the proper party is. So a delay does not do anything besides delay and prejudice the petitioner here, which again, the remonstrators would have a remedy to proceed with the lawsuit. Understand the historical significance. Again, we're not here today requesting permission to demolish the property. If it may be demolished, it may be demolished. If there's any historical grounds or other considerations that would prohibit it, there would be surely remedies that the remonstrators could pursue to prohibit that from being done. But we're here today to look to see if whether or not the property can be subdivided into 4 parcels. If you look at page 110 of the staff's report, which indicates the proposed plat, the proposed parcels are wider than the parcels immediately to the north of it. Again, the findings are that it does squarely fit within the D8 zoning ordinances standards, meaning that the proposed plat should be approved here. We're not discussing the development of the proposed plans, but if D8 zoning ordinances would permit townhomes or any other sort of building to be built on it, then that's the way that it is. It sadly shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that you can build pursuant to the zoning ordinances, and if they aren't permitted and variances are needed, then that would be the appropriate time for the remonstrators to oppose any sort of development of which does not comply with the D8 zoning standards. So the petitioner would oppose any sort of delay or continuance for the reasons stated. I'm not sure, and I guess I would ask if there is ability to grant a continuance at this stage instead of the special exceptions at the beginning, but that's just for my own purposes. If there is, that's fine, and I'll leave it to the board's discretion. But again, I don't think that there are any grounds for a delay or continuance of what we're here for today, because at the end of the day, nothing is going to change the petitioner's proposed plat. It will always comply with the D8 zoning standards, and all the considerations and objections by remonstrators they can pursue through remedies that would be appropriate, such as a declaratory judgment action to determine who the rightful owner of the property is. That being the case, that would have an impact on the plat being recorded down the line, and a judge could issue an injunction from that plat ever being recorded as well. And clearly, if that happens, then the petitioner is not going to want to spend costs of going forward with the plat, knowing that they're going to have to defend this legal title action or the lawsuit, and would want to get that squared away at first. But this is the first time that we've been really hearing about that. So, with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from Mr. Cross?
So, Mr. Cross, if there's a possibility that this plat would not get approved, you still do not want a continuance? You'd rather have a decision like that?
If the board feels that there are grounds to...
And I appreciate that. Yes. 3 times you've told us how to do our job, but if it is not going to pass, you are still opposed to a continuance if not passing is a possibility?
I do not have my client's authority one way or another. If you're leaning towards providing more time based on the remonstrators' objections, then again, that's within the board's discretion, and I myself would not oppose that now.
Okay.
Any other questions from Mr. Cross? Okay, thank you. Mr. Kenneth, can you say your last name one more time, please?
Kadir.
Kadir, I just want to make sure I said it correctly.
Yes,
Yeah, Mr. Kadir. Thank you. And you have 5 minutes, sir.
The covenants question that you all asked, is there any covenants? You're standing here, you're looking at it. I lived in the property for 20-some-odd years with my mother, protecting, defending, repairing, maintaining the property. Okay, I am the history of the property. From her, she drug me around to meetings like this to teach me about the ins and outs and the workings of how to protect her property. And I did it with the best of my ability to do so. And I think about you know, one other thing, when I was a younger man, this has no bearing on it, but the covenant is standing right here before you. You're looking at it. I had a sweet 16 birthday party with Mary Luger in this building as I was growing up. And I never understood why such a leader would take a young up and coming or whatever from the streets and bring him up here. And all the more that I'm placed on these platforms, I'm beginning to see. And what I'm seeing, I know he wouldn't agree to, as he's no longer with us and went on to become a very successful senator of the Senate Arms and Ways Committee in the U.S. Senate. That's the type of leadership that I'm reaching for, in people being decisive, morally, steadfast with the values that this city has bestowed upon a person like me, or all of us that are enjoying the fruits of our great leaders' efforts. So with that said, I just don't see how passing this thing without giving us the opportunity to prove, once again, the ownership. I paid for the 2 lots that they're talking about building on myself. Those are my lots. You check your record, you'll see a record of where I paid for them. And yet, somehow or another, through some dangling of people knowing one another in the office of the assessors and the recorder's office, this all got turned over. And I know my mom is rolling over in her grave right now, that we have to even stand there and have this discussion, because I would have loved to have continued to pay the taxes, pay the mortgage, and rehab the property. That's what was supposed to happen on that corner, in honor of Ruther Powell, a very dedicated civil servant to the city of Indianapolis. And if you pull trash cans to your alley, you think of Ruther Powell. That idea came from her to this city. And you, yeah, Miss Irene. She's one of the founding members of the organization too as well.
Sir, you have 5 minutes. I just point that out because if you want Mark to come back up and say anything from the Historical Society, you're going to have to give him some of your time.
Mark, okay. I just have clarification.
I just didn't want you to run out of time.
Thank you. So I just want to make clear, because it was made a reference that I said something about covenants as it is specific to this property. I did not. Yes, we were heavily involved in Fall Creek Place. There were numerous properties that we acquired from the city that we rehabbed and resold with covenants. As this young lady here stated, just to clarify, I agree with her, because I think I said to her, we do not have covenants on the specific property that's being discussed here today. My reasoning in standing up before you all is basically one of kind of a moral and ethical approach that I felt like was taken by the city to the redevelopment of that area, and one that we were fully behind and felt was a great mix between market rate and affordable housing, so we keep a certain diversity in the neighborhood, and this just continues to kind of upend that. So I did not stand up here and tell you all I thought you should deny this, but what I did say is I feel like there is some additional information that needs to be gathered. This gentleman needs to do his work, and that continuance could at least allow some time to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm sorry if my question was misleading. I was asking if there was a covenant. So, Mr. Kadir, are you requesting a continuance?
Yes, we need to either table it indefinitely or continue it.
So, okay, so you are requesting a continuance.
And I will provide you with everything, and it will become clear to you.
Okay, thank you. Board members, anything? Any questions? Okay, now entertain a motion.
I move that we continue 2022 PLT 032 to the July 13th Plat Committee.
Would we need to provide additional notice on this? Okay, just making sure. Cover my bases.
No.
Sorry, Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Now call the vote. Ms. Moyo.
Moyo votes yes.
Ms. Hackett.
Hackett's a yes.
And Nielsen's a yes. 2022 PLT 032 is continued to the July 13th hearing without additional notice. Thank you.
Time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Same place,
Sorry,
also
I just
Wednesday.
didn't know
Yep, that's
about
right.
that.
And any more information staff can get by that time will be great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
2022 VAC 002, 863, 875 Massachusetts Avenue. Center Township, Council District 17. Landmark Properties Incorporated by J. Murray Clark, requesting vacation of the first northwest to southeast alley southwest of 9th Street, being 14 feet in width, beginning at the southeast right-of-way line of Massachusetts Avenue, southeast 124.98 feet to the first northeast to southwest alley southeast of Massachusetts Avenue, with a waiver of the assessment of which has been withdrawn, and a vacation of the first northeast to southwest alley southeast of Massachusetts Avenue, being 15 feet in width, beginning at the southwest right-of-way line of 9th Street, southwest 294 feet to the first northwest to southeast alley southwest of 9th Street. And I would direct you all away from your pink staff report into the addendum staff report that I've provided to you.
Thanks.
All persons speaking on this today, please step forward to be sworn in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Petitioner, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, for the record, I'm Murray Clark, I'm an attorney with offices 300 North Meridian Street, and I represent Landmark Properties in this matter. And with me today from Landmark are Brian Pophood and Bo Pophood. You'll hear from Mr. Pophood in a second. Kind of have to take a deep breath after that last hearing. But appreciate your attention to this, will be, I guess, your final case before you. This is indeed a request to vacate two small alleys that are conjoined off of Mass Avenue, kind of to the south across Massachusetts Avenue from the front door of Bottle Works. And I'll get into the details of the request. I mean, we agree with staff that it's in the public interest. We have a slight disagreement, which I think has kept us from being on the expedited docket. But I thought it'd be helpful for Mr. Podhood to tell you a little more about this project as a whole, the renovation project. So if you'll indulge, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear, if you could hear from Mr. Podhood, and then I'll come back and talk a little more about the details.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you. For the record, Brian Pollard, 9333 North Meridian Street, Suite 350, Indianapolis, 46260. We are owners and developers of the 863 Mass Ave project, currently going through a series of demolition work right now. We're trying to turn the building back into more or less a shell condition. We bought the project from the Center Township trustee, who was the owner and resident of that building since 1975. Originally, it was built in 1917. It has historical significance, and if I could direct your attention to tab 1, the rendering that you see there is what we presented to the Indianapolis Historical Preservation Commission. That was approved, at least our part 1, which includes any renovation, retrofit to the front facade of the building, as well as the other 3 less significant, but mostly indicative of what you see here. I drag your attention to the left of the rendering, the left side of the page, where you'll see the alley in question that we're here to talk about today as one of the two alleys that we've requested vacation of. As you can see, some string lighting kind of matches up with the parking lot that is currently exists to the south or west of the facility on the right-hand side of the building, of the rendering as well. So historical preservation has seen, conceptually at least, changes to the alley. We take a little bit of a page out of Bottle Works playbook here, where they had vacated alleys and roadways and done the string lighting and beautified and provided an amenity for that project. The one thing about this particular building I draw your attention to is to the rear of the building is 120 some odd surface parking spaces. Prior to Center Township moving Small Claims Court up to Fall Creek, that was a pretty heavily traveled parking lot. Some of that traffic was no longer going to the front entrance of the building, but the rear entrance of the building due to some security concerns, and they had the metal detectors, so forth, on the back side of the building. Alley, candidly, was not used that much longer. COVID obviously affected the population of the Center Township building in general, where they closed the front entrance of the building permanently, open for fire purposes, but not for pedestrian traffic or any visitors that would come through there. We hope to change that, and the use of the building we envision to be the first floor with a food and beverage operator, where that front door is now very active. The rear of the building, where those surface parks are, would be still utilized for the office tenants, which you could see would be on floors 2 through 5. So that's a long way of saying we expect this alley to be much more utilized, and we need to activate it and beautify it. So first and foremost, no vehicular traffic, and I think staff is in agreement with that. And Mr. Clark will get into some details related to the request in that regard. The only other thing I've dragged your attention to is page, or tab 2, my apologies. This is a conceptual rendering of what our architect's ratio has put together to consider for what this would look like after vacation, and after we would be able to provide it more as an amenity to the tenants in our building, the tenants to the existing building to the south, which is Trailside. As the committee may know, there are 3 food and beverage type operators out of the Trailside project. One in particular, Gordon's Milkshakes. During COVID, being right on the cultural trail, guess what? We can't have tables and chairs on the cultural trail. You can't have people inside. So Gordon's Milkshakes use the alley with a series of picnic tables to let their clientele and customers use it. We are in agreement with Trailside to continue that relationship, that they can use it as well. And this at least is an artist's rendition of plantings, tables, chairs. We intend to put either large plantings or bollards to prevent cars from coming across, making sure it's very visible to anybody that this is closed for vehicular traffic and pedestrian only. And then the next page there is just a top-down view with lighting, and again, tables and chairs that would be utilized for food and beverage, employee breaks for lunch, and certainly 24/7 space if needed. And we think by lighting it, certainly it becomes more safe for people parking behind the building and accessing Mass Ave to the corridor, Bottle Works, and beyond. So with that, I'll wait till the end for questions and turn it over to Mr. Clark.
Thank you. So I think he's talked about tabs 1 and 2. I guess I direct your attention to, as we talk a little more in detail about what we request in tab 3. It's a bit of a busy bit of material. I apologize for that. You heard Mr. Prophet say they bought this building at 863 Mass Ave from the Center Township trustee. The Center Township trustee also owns the building there designated as trailside property. That's kind of the pink building, if you will. That's what we refer to as the trailside property. The trustee owns that, but has a ground lease with the people that develop this trailside development, which is really a great development. Again, part of the great stuff that's going on in Mass Ave and around Bottle Works. And it's a residential with some commercial you've heard on the first floor. So we refer to that as the trailside property. I would note that we have met with stakeholders, we've had discussions. We've always talked about Landmark having control at some point of the entire alleyway. That's because the trustee, who again still owns the trailside property, at least the fee simple, has told us have no interest in paying an assessment of benefits, no interest in maintaining, no interest in putting any further financial input into the improvements that are proposed and so forth. So as you can see, the alleys there are two of them. Alley A is the one I think that's really at issue here. That's the one between the two buildings. And in your new staff report, I think there's several pages, 7, 8, 9, and 11 that have pretty good pictures of that alleyway. That's really, I think, the one that's probably at most at issue here. That is very small, 1,749 square feet, or 0.04 of an acre, and the appraiser has valued the fee ownership of that alley at $1,750. The contiguous piece, or what I've called this Alley B in these tab 3, is a little longer, a little larger. It's 4,410 square feet, about 1/10 of an acre, and the appraiser has appraised that ownership interest, fee interest, at $2,650. By the way, indeed, we did withdraw our request for waiver of assessments. We have gotten the appraisals back. We have do not contest or object to those values. So we have, in the interest of protecting, you heard Ms. Bud talk about protecting the people in the trailside development. Here's what we've agreed to. And we've circulated a memorandum of understanding to owners of the trailside property. I hope we're in agreement. First, with regard to that Alley A, the one between the buildings, the smaller of the two, we've agreed to give the trailside property, the owners, the residents, the tenants, the business owners or invitees, pedestrian access to, use of, and consumption, the right to consume food and beverages within that alley. So they have that in the easement. And also for maintenance and repair of their building, the west facade of that trailside building. The intention being, with regard to that Alley A, it will continue to enable pedestrian traffic through Alley A, and the non-exclusive use of that Alley A, for the benefit of the tenants and people associated with that trailside building. And then you heard about the improvements in our memorandum of understanding, what we're willing to put in writing and an easement that will be recorded and run with the property. We've agreed to do enhanced lighting, and then some combination of bollards, tables, chairs, and/or bench seating, bike racks, and potentially other gathering place amenities, and a hose bib, which was specifically requested by one of the owners of Trailside. And then any utility costs associated with those improvements, and all maintenance, repair, cleaning, and as I said, utility costs associated with Alley A would be Landmark's responsibility. Alley B, not as complicated, but we would give them an easement to make sure that they had continued pedestrian vehicular access across that alleyway to the backside of the Trailside building. As to this issue of whether it's in the public interest, again, we agree with staff. Tab 4, actually, the idea of alley vacation in this area is not new. Most recently, we saw it in 2017 when, as part of the Bottle Works project, they replatted that area. So in tab 4, you will see in yellow highlight areas of public right-of-way that were Carrollton, and then I believe the smaller one is Edison Avenue. So, and we would be across the street to the south or southeast of that. So we know that vacations have occurred as this area of Mass Ave has developed and improved and so forth. So clearly we do agree. We think the staff's right that it is in the public interest. And of course, the only area of really disagreement that I know of with us and the staff has to do with the condition, and that is that the staff wants us to remove the curb cut, and you see that in tab 5. There's a picture of the actual curb cut. So this picture would have been taken essentially at the front door of the Bottle Works Hotel, looking south across Mass Ave. So you see the cut, then you see the cultural trail, and then you see this alley A that we've talked about. And respectfully, I think I understand the intent, but respectfully, we prefer to put our investments in the alley. And the issue of removal of this curb cut, and then also doing other improvements, whether they be landscaping or landscaping islands, is that there's a level of uncertainty there that we think is untenable for us. You can see in this picture there's going to be a drainage issue. You can see a drainage grate there. And so we don't know if this is a $5,000 project or a $50,000 project. And with these old streets, we could be in a kind of a crazy situation where we spend 10 or 20 or 30 times what the appraiser has assessed the value of that alley to do the improvements that staff has asked for associated with this vacation. So that's kind of our reasoning there. The investment for improvements in the alley A that we're talking about are significant. They're tens of thousands of dollars as well. It's not like they're not willing to invest, but really are disinclined to agree or prefer not to take on this task of the improvements with regard to that public right-of-way, the curb cut, that is requested by staff. I would also say real quickly, because my time's almost up, we did hear a sentiment from one of the community meetings we had where I don't know that there's unanimity on this, on the thought that curb cut should be closed. One person had mentioned that it could be a good kind of indentation space for an Uber, Lyft, or even delivery. So with that, we stand prepared to answer any questions you might have, and of course, respectfully request your favorable consideration of this vacation request.
Mr. Clark, have you seen the letter from, I saw you were CC'd from Mass Avenue Cultural Arts District and Mass Avenue Merchants Association?
I did.
Yeah, so the concerns that they point to, the petitioner has been unable to commit to us that the vacated alleys will remain open in perpetuity of pedestrian traffic. You've said you've addressed that.
Well, I think Meg would say not exactly.
Okay.
If I had to get. So the agreement, the memorandum of understanding that we have wrote, prepared, and delivered to the owners of Trailside is between them and Trailside. So it's the adjoining property owners have entered into this.
Okay.
I'm not sure, I'm not real sure what Meg wants us to do in terms of the public at large, but she could probably speak for herself on this. But so we don't want to, we would prefer to protect those interests in the way that we propose to do with Trailside, right? Because we can't very well, as a practical matter, you can't shut it off and take care of Trailside. On the other hand, Landmark may want to close off the alley to have a special event for its office tenants, or Trailside may want to ask to have it closed off to have a special event for its residents and so forth. So we'd like that flexibility, but we really think that as a practical matter, it will remain open. That's the only way we can take care of Trailside. And also, as a practical matter, that's how we really have it be a meaningful amenity to our tenants, office tenants, but hopefully a restaurant tenant on the first floor.
And you also mentioned that that Landmark is in prospective development would be putting ballards around the front of the alleyway. Is that what you
Right.
said? Yeah.
And I think that, and this Bob could maybe speak to it better. We have thrown out the idea of bollards, even lighted bollards, or some kind of major concrete flower pot system or something, right? We want to make it clear from anybody, any vehicular traffic on Mass Ave, that you're not going to be able to get through this alley.
And so where would the ideally in that development, where would those be placed?
Well, I think they'd be probably placed on, for the Mass Ave purposes, they would have to be toward Mass Ave, right?
Okay.
So not on the cultural trail, it would get back from the cultural trail, obviously.
So it would still expose an entrance, a vehicular entrance from Mass Ave into the alleyway, though. So the bollards, excuse me, would be closer to the entrance of the alley. Is that what you would be saying?
It'd be the northernmost section of the alley itself.
Of the alley itself.
Where the alley abuts the sidewalk.
Okay.
Because you got alley, sidewalk, cultural trail, and then Mass Ave.
Okay.
That helps.
Great.
So at any given time when I'm wandering around Mass Ave, not doing business with any of the partners in this project, can I walk down that alley?
I mean, as a practical matter, they're not going to keep you off of it. I mean, they're not going to have a policeman there saying no. But yeah, I mean, as a practical matter, unless they're having a special event for Trailside or their people.
Both A and B?
Fair?
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Other questions before we hear from the remonstrators? Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark. Anyone else here for 2022 VAC 002?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty for perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Meg Starro, and I'm board president of the Mass Ave Merchants Association and the Mass Ave Cultural Arts District. We think the project is essentially a great improvement to the district, and think the office use will be very supportive of the tenants in the Trailside building. What caught our attention in the draft MOU that we saw was that the agreement to remain open to pedestrian traffic expired at the termination of the Trailside building lease with the trustee. And if I had my future hat on, I would say that the parking lot is likely to be developed at some point because it's such valuable land on Mass Ave. And I think that Davidson Street, I think that's the name of the street that goes behind the parking lot, will eventually, it has wide right-of-way, eventually that will become improved, and potentially, at least in our long-term view, there could be a greenway or a nice new cultural trail loop that would extend from 10th Street, which is the connection to the Monon, behind Mass Ave along the interstate. And what we'd like to see is that's a long block in the 800 area. We'd like to see that alley remain open so that the whole district isn't totally centered on Mass Ave, but it has more depth, that it has porosity for pedestrians to move around. Again, we're not against the project. We understand it might be closed temporarily for events, and that would be between agreement between the building owners or the tenants. But in the long term, we think that that alley needs to remain open to pedestrians.
So are you referring to what they're calling Alley A, the one right between the buildings, or the alley behind?
Alley A is our primary interest, yes.
Okay. And
Alley B would be desirable, but we would focus on A.
So I just want to make sure I understand the objection. So if it was forever, that alley will be available for pedestrians, does that remove your objection?
Yes. Of course, that doesn't get us to Davidson Street, so that's where Alley B is important as well. So we're open to some kind of
discussion or agreement about that. I don't know what the real answer is unless there's an agreement to keep both A and B open to pedestrians.
But you consider open for Alley A being designed the way they've described it, as long as, in my scenario, I can walk down it as well?
Right.
So then, in that case, the issue is how long is that commitment?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
None right now.
Okay.
Thank you. Before we move on to staff, anyone else here for this petition? Great. Jeff?
Thank you, Chairperson Nielsen, members of the committee. I want to ask the petitioner a question right off this from his submittal on site plan under tab 2. Which way is Mass Ave on this? Is it on the left? Mass Ave sidewalk?
To the left. Yeah.
I got confused. Oh, I get the question.
To the left side.
Yes. To the left side is
The left side.
Yeah.
So that's showing landscaping in the sidewalk area? You want to make sure? Okay. All right, so the staff is recommending approval of this petition. We do have a commitment that is a result of consultation with, of course, current planning staff, Department of Public Works, and Indianapolis Cultural Trail chairperson, CEO, Karen Haley specifically. We reviewed the petition, specifically the Alley A as described by petitioner as is accessed off of Massachusetts Avenue and into the site. We feel like the property or the request is in the public interest, but it is not uncommon for staff to request a commitment when there is a closing of an alley on certainly a primary street, that the curb cut be closed. The curb cut be closed because that will certainly ensure that no drivers access this space. If you, this is also a very special site because it has a cultural trail along this portion of Massachusetts Avenue. If you look at the photos starting on page 7, and petitioner also has some photos here as well, you will see Alley A access off of Massachusetts Avenue. The petitioner's site is to the right, and then trail side mixed use development to the left. As we all know, this is in a historic district, Chatham Marsh and Massachusetts Avenue. It's a very vibrant urban area right across the street from Bottle Works. As you see the Massachusetts Avenue pavement on the lower part of the photo on page 7, you'll see the access that formerly drivers used this to get back to the parking lot that's to the east of Trailside Development. It crosses over the Cultural Trail and the Mass Ave sidewalk. And again, with consultation with our staff, DPW, and Cultural Trail, we believe that the curb cut should be closed, and at the very least, it'd be pavers along that section, and what we really would like to see is landscaping. That landscaping that is divided by the curb cut to be, connected, with improvements there. Ms. Haley indicated that her preference is to have that landscape completely filled in. So we have made that as our commitment, as you see on bottom of page 2 of your addendum, that we were asking for the driveway curb cut from Massachusetts Avenue to the alley between the buildings at 863 Massachusetts Avenue and 875 Massachusetts Avenue shall be removed and improved to Indianapolis Cultural Trail Incorporated and City of Indianapolis Department of Public Works specifications and standards. These improvements shall include, but are not limited to, pavers, including their proper installation, and/or landscape beds, including curbs, soils, plants, and irrigation. By that commitment, there is a couple of options that is proposed by this commitment. The petitioner's own site plan indicates landscaping in Massachusetts Avenue sidewalk. So why not do that? Why not put this landscape section in there, close it off of Massachusetts Avenue? You will prevent drivers certainly from accessing this space. You activate this alley to become a space where it is has less possibility of safety issues or problems of that nature by adding the lighting that petitioners indicated. That will assist in people that are not supposed to be there to not go there. So with that, our staff's recommending approval with this commitment that you see on your addendum. We have received, as petitioner indicated, that they're withdrawing the assessment of benefits request. We would ask for you to formally acknowledge that. And then secondly, that the assessment is $4,400, and just to acknowledge that in the recommendation approval. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Jeff?
So if they put big cement planters with plants in them across that curb cut,
That's not going to work.
I tried. Okay.
Anything else? Okay, Mr. Clark, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Couple things I would say. Mr. York, as always, has a very professional presentation and a great staff report. One of the renderings does show landscaping, another one doesn't. Those are renderings that shows green space. Again, I think our objection here is we don't really know what we're getting into with this. So if you look at it, not only do we have to comply with city specs, I got to be honest with you, I don't know the specs of Cultural Trail. I should, but I suspect they're probably tougher than the city specs. And the improvements include pavers, installation, landscaping beds, curbs, soil, plants, and irrigation. We don't really know what we're getting into, and in fact, that drainage grate is in the middle of what we're going to have to remove there, right? We don't know what we're going to get into. It could leave us in a situation where we're spending 10, 20, 30 times what the appraiser says this alley's value is with regard to this commitment. Cultural Trail has been a phenomenal success. I was on the Indianapolis Foundation when it started and all that. The irony of all this, of course, is that because the Cultural Trail is there, which is great, highly used, our friend that runs the ice cream store there, right, that you see on the side of the alley, cannot have his patrons sit in front of his store, right? So that's the main reason why that alley becomes such a gathering place, a place for people to come to meet, to eat food and so forth, consume food. So we think we're doing a good thing. We think that, like Meg said, we think the plans for this alley are a benefit to the community, including the Cultural Trail. We think it'll be a great benefit to everybody. It's just, Jeff, it's just the uncertainty of saying, we have to do all of this, and that's really our objection. As to the length of time, so the ground lease that the Trailside folks, talking about the Trailside property now, the ground lease they have with the trustee is 40 years, plus they have an automatic 10-year option, I believe. They can unilaterally exercise it. So one reason we did it that way is, number one, Trailside, we don't know they may want to tear their building down, they may want to do something different, we don't know. I mean, that's kind of why we tied it into that time frame. But, I mean, if we get to 50 years and, Trailside's still there, they still are gonna want to use that. We'll figure out a way to extend it, but they'll still want to use that, I would guess. That's the reason for the.
Okay.
And by the way, thank you to Meg and her group. They were kind enough to host us for really a good meeting and discussion. We've met with the city councilor, Gary Ryder, whose the email I got from him yesterday seems to be okay from the O'Reilly Economic Development Corp. with the changes that we've asked for, or that he had asked. They had asked, Trailside asked for some changes in the MOU. So with those changes, his email to me, they were okay with it.
Questions, Mr. Clark? Go ahead.
So, Mr. Clark,
Yes.
if the recommended motion includes this curb cut, I don't know how the motion's not going to include the curb cut.
Well, at the risk of sounding like that lawyer before, because I think you have wide discretion on what your motion could be, right? But I get what you're saying. We would hope that it would not include, that it would be a normal vacation motion which did not include the condition that was added to it.
Okay.
And again, to be clear, the assessment, we're fine with the assessment.
And to confirm, so the commitment to the pedestrian access to the alleyway is 50 years right now, the 40 plus the 10?
Right. Well, it's the way it's land. It says for the length of that ground lease, and we actually describe the ground lease as 40 plus 10.
Okay.
So theoretically, if that ground lease is extended, the agreement extends with it.
So can that be more than theoretical?
Well, that's an agreement between the trustee and Trailside. We have nothing.
Well, no, but I mean,
But could there be a sentence added that
if it's extended.
if it's extended, that continues, or is that already?
I mean, it might be in there, but it could be. We can say as long as it is, whether it's 40, 10, or 60, or whatever.
Okay.
Just expressing my viewpoint is agreeing that this is in the public interest to vacate it, but making the vacation as safe as possible is also in the public interest. So supportive of, before you make your motion, supportive of the staff recommendation.
Before we make a motion, do we want to ask any concerned persons if they have an interest in taking advantage of their possible rebuttal time?
Oh, yes, thank you. Ms. Scaro, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I think if the petitioner is willing to run the access for pedestrians with the ground lease and it's contingent on Trailside, I don't see what the problem is just to make it open in perpetuity. I think that we're all going to be gone, probably, but to me, it's possible that once there's food in that alley, there'll be trash, there'll be nuisances, and it will be very tempting to close that alley and control it. And I would understand why, but that's the urban fabric that Mass Ave is as well. So I think it's important to think about the long-term viability of the district, and walkability is something that the city is trying to promote. So I really think that long-term, the more we can get rid of cars, the more we can walk around, the more we can find our destinations through our own foot traffic, our foot pedal is important. It's a valuable thing to have a city that's walkable. So I think that I would urge you to make it a part of the agreement.
So from Ms. Naro or others?
So here's my question. So if in 40 years they sell that building, and we've said that alley has to be open in forever, who has that responsibility then? The people who would buy that building?
Well, I don't think they're committing to perpetuity. So it's going to be limited by the sounds like the terms of their land lease, so.
Right, that's why I'm trying to figure out how we would even do a forever access.
We would make this vacation subject to a public access easement.
So then, no matter who has...
Right.
So we're not committing them to anything more than what they can do right now with it, what they say they're going to do in terms of access right now. Does that make, so the petitioner has said for the 40 years that we have this agreement, this alley's going to have public access. So if we say it's forever, then
their agreement is moot at that point.
So we're not asking them to do, we're asking them then to keep it open for as long as they own that building. And then whoever owns it after them has to keep it open. Okay. Okay.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Committee?
Jeff, I'm trying to find a compromise on the curb cut.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is it creates continuity across Mass Ave too. It's a safety concern.
I get it, I just don't know why they have to do it.
It's not something that we don't make anybody who closes a curb cut for an alley. We always make them do that.
When there's I get it when that curb cut is right there by the alley. The fact that it's across the cultural trail for me is what I'm struggling with.
We had the liquor store on Virginia Avenue, we had to let them do the same thing.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
And it would just be it just is restoring to the cultural trail though. Like they're not correct. They're not making improvements to the cultural trail itself.
No, I get that.
Yeah. Okay. So they wouldn't, when they're making these improvements, maybe that says in the staff report, excuse me.
Yeah, maybe better visible on page 8, the photo on page 8. You'll see the pieces of the curb cut and the landscaping. You know, that portion there on this side of the pavers, you know, to the Mass Ave pavement would be what would be improved.
Right. Anything else?
Does staff have an opinion about the forever access?
Staff, I don't believe would have any issues.
Either way?
Either way.
If we were to approve that and then the building was sold whenever, how would that, they would have to have it vacated again? Like a future owner would?
They would come back through with the vacation for the easement.
Great. Okay, thank you. Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the Plat Committee find that the proposed vacation is in the public interest, that the Plat Committee sustain, confirm, approve, and adopt the final assessment roll in 2022 VAC 002, including the assessment of benefits in accordance therewith in the amount of $4,400. And that the Plat Committee confirm and ratify the adoption of Declaratory Resolution 2022 VAC 002, and that the vacation be subject to the rights of public utilities under Indiana Code 36-7-3-16, subject to the following commitment: that the driveway curb cut from Mass Ave to the alley between the buildings at 863 Mass Ave and 875 Mass Ave be removed and improved to the Indianapolis Cultural Trail and the City of Indianapolis DPW specification and standards. These improvements shall include, but not be limited to, pavers, including their proper installation, landscape beds, including curb soils, plants, and irrigation, and that there be a, just because I can't say the word, a forever public access attached to this plat for Alley A and Alley B.
Is there a second?
Second.
And I'll call roll. Ms. Moyo.
Moyo votes yes.
Ms. Hackett.
Hackett is a yes.
And Nielsen's a yes. 2022 VAC 002, as illustrated in the staff report, plus Ms. Hackett's addition, is approved. Thank you.
Thanks for your attention.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Heather, do we have any other additional business today?
Oh boy, do we.
Okay.
Since you have just voted to approve that vacation, I have findings of fact for both parts to be adopted. And with that, I have no additional business.
Okay. Well, with that, as always, thank you, staff and board members, for all your hard work, the City of Indianapolis, and this hearing is adjourned.